Hi, it's Peter Chen recording another 500 Zoom video. So on table one, I'm going to be defending this. I was going to be defending versus the one raise. Now that there's the second guy in there, it's a lot closer. I think it's pretty close, but it's not a call. On table one, opening the button with Jack 10 offsuit. On table two, 3-betting the small blind against cutoff with ace king. On table one on this flop, I'm going to be betting for a small size with a lot of hands. And on table two, on the lower flops, I'm going to be either checking or betting half pot. Ace king, I'll be checking a little bit more. And going to check again on the turn. Against the half pot bet, going to call once. And fold to the river bet. On table one, calling a 3-bet from cutoff against small blind with ace queen. On the flop, I think this is pretty close. In table two, I opened king 4 from the cutoff. On this paired flop, I'm going to be betting small. And now folding the ace queen. Now with this king, I'm going to be betting sometimes and checking sometimes. Now just checking back the river always. So I defended blind versus blind with this ace 2. And mostly going to be checking with the ace high. On table two, calling the 3-bet with king queen suited. And with the ace high, checking again. Against a third pot bet with the 2 overs and backdoor flush draw, going to be calling. and hitting my pair on the river, I'm going to be calling again. And now I think my hand is just always going to be a shove. On table 1, opening king 3 suited from the button. And I'm going to fold to the big 3-bet. Against the small blind limp, I'm going to check back with queen 9. I'll be raising probably a small percent of the time, but I'll be mostly polarized. And calling the flop bet. Now I'm going to start betting. I don't know if I want to be betting for a big size. I'm not sure if I get big bets here and if my hand is strong enough to go for an overbet. On table 2, 3-betting small blind versus button with ace 9 suited. And on this flop, I'm going to be betting big. I'll check this hand sometimes and bet it sometimes. So on table 1, the button limped, small blind raised, and I called. I'm going to be checking my entire range on the flop. I hit my straight. I'm not sure if I can bet big or not though. So I think I'm just going to go for a small bet. Opening king 6 suited from the hijack. And on table 1, opening king 10 suited from cutoff. This guy has 20 bigs. I'm actually not sure if I'm supposed to call or not. So on table 2, I opened ace king and got called by the big blind. Going to be betting small on this flop, and also betting pretty often, especially with my hand. On table 1, opening the button with ace jack off. And I get a flop where I'm going to be betting small pretty often. This hand is going to be checking a little more, but I'm still going to bet it a lot of the time. The 10 is a great card for me. But my hand plays very well as a check. On table 2, I open the small blind, and I'm going to be betting small with my range on this flop. With the ace jack, I think it's pretty close. I think I still get value from a jack, so I'm going to bet. On table 1, I'm going to be 3-betting this hand. I think I'll be pure 3-betting it. And on table 2, 3-betting ace-8 suited small blind versus cutoff. And table 1, I'm going to start off with a small bet. On table 2, this ace-10, I'm going to mix calling and raising with mostly raising. On table 1, defending my big blind with 10-3. So I face a pot bet. I think I can mix in a small amount of raising, mostly calling though. So I think when I bet on this river, um, having hearts is not good for me, but my hand is also pretty low, so I think I can put in a bet. I'm going to go for a small bet because my heart blockers are not that great. Most of my non-heart hands can have an ace or king in them, and folding to this raise. So on table 2, I'm going to be raising this ace jack a small percent of the time, but mostly calling. And also mixing raising and calling on this flop. On the heart turn, I'm going to be pretty much checking everything. And calling this bet. On table 1, I called the big blind. I called around a half pot bet on the flop, and turn went check check. So my hand is pretty low here, so I'm going to have to bet. I don't have a great blocker to bet big, so I'm going to bet small. On table 2, going to be betting big on this flop. I think this hand is mostly a check. I have a fairly weak backdoor straight draw, nothing else. Now I can bet or check. I think this hand is high enough that I don't have to bet it a lot of the time, but I could still bet sometimes. I think the club is pretty much just a blank. So given that I was very close to betting on the turn, I think I want to be betting always on the river. On table 2, going to be betting small on this flop, and I think my hand is okay as a check back. And I'm going to be calling once. I think now I have to bet my hand. A lot of my offsuit hands have an ace in them. And then the lower ones will be betting a lot more often on the flop. So this is pretty close to the weakest hand I can have. On table 1, I'm going to be betting for a small size very often. And I think I need to continue on the turn. The ace is not that great of a card for me. Most of my weaker hands are still very weak. On table 2, flop and turn check through. I think my hand is very good for a raise. He should have very few Jack X that made a boat because he would be betting the turn. His range should be a lot of ace X. On table 2 with the 10-7, I'm going to be calling sometimes and 3-betting sometimes, mostly calling. Table 1 opening the button with King 9 suited. Table 2, 3-betting small blind against cutoff with pocket 7s. So I get a flop where I'm going to be betting at a high frequency. And again, this is a turn where I'm going to be betting quite a bit. I should play some check raises, but I'm not sure if my hand plays well with that. On table 2, I defended my big blind with 10-8. I'm going to be calling this flop every time. And again, I'm going to be calling this turn. I don't think I should ever raise with my hand. Opening jacks from the cutoff. And I'm going to be mostly calling this 3-bet, maybe 4-betting a small percent of the time. So I can either bet or check this. And on the turn, I think I want to be mostly betting. The 2 is pretty much just a complete brick. He shouldn't have a 3, really. My hand's pretty close for a big bet, I think. I think I am getting called by weaker pairs if he has them. On table 2, I called the big blind against small blind with queen 8. I have a bunch of backdoor draws, so calling his quarter pot bet on the flop, and now folding the turn. On table 1, blind versus blind again, calling the bet on the flop. And now hitting top pair and calling again. Now I've improved to a straight. He checks, and I think with the draw coming in, I shouldn't be betting too big. Maybe if I have a flush, I can be overbetting, but I don't think with the straight I'm strong enough. At table 2, facing a limp, going to raise the small blind with queens. Big blind 3 bets. It's big of enough bet that I think I can just shove. Unfortunately, run into aces. On table 1, I 3-bet, bet quarter pot on the flop. The turn is a blank, so I'm going to be betting big. And now shoving this river as well. My hand is just really strong. Going to end the video after this hand, regardless of the result. So thanks for watching, guys, and see you next week.